Hi, and welcome to my video on the multiplication of integers. Multiplication of integers. Rule 1. Multiplication of like signs is a positive. Like signs, that means if you're multiplying two positives, you get a positive. So 4 times 3 is 12. Multiplication of like signs. Multiplication of two negatives is a positive. 12. 10 times 5 is 50. When you multiply like signs, you get a positive. 8 times 1 is 8. When you multiply like signs, you get a positive. 7 times 3 is 21. When you multiply like signs, you get a positive. When 40 is the product of 20 and 2, multiply like signs, positive. 9 eighths are 72. When you multiply like signs, you get a positive. 15 times 3 is 40. When you multiply like signs, you get a positive. 11 times 4 is 44. When you multiply like signs, you get a positive. So if the signs are the same, when you multiply two integers, you'll get a positive. So positive times a positive is a positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. Practice. See if you get all these right. Pause the video, work them out, play it back. 10 times 7 is 70. Positive. 6 sixes is 36. Positive, like signs. 12 times 5, 60. Positive, like signs. 9 nines are 81. Positive, like signs. 8 times 3 is 24 and a 0. Like signs. Product of two negatives. Positive, 52. 13 times 4. Two negatives multiplied gives you positive. 1 times any number is that number. 4 times 16 is 64. Negative times negative is a positive. Like signs. 3 eighths are 24. Multiplication of like signs. Positive. Let's continue. That's rule 1. Product of like signs is positive. Another rule. Let's call this rule 2. Let's put a 2 in here. Rule 2. The multiplication of unlike signs is negative. So when you multiply negative by positive, you get a negative. 1 times 4 is 4. Negative times a positive is a negative. 3 sixes are 18. Positive times a negative is a negative. 35. And positive times a negative is a negative. 60. Negative times a positive is a negative. 3 nines are 27. 12 times 4 is 48. And a positive times a negative is a negative. When you multiply unlike sign, you get a negative. When you multiply like signs, you get a positive. These are unlike signs. Pause, work these out. 16, negative, unlike signs. 30, negative, unlike signs. 11 times 3, 33, unlike signs, negative, when you're multiplying. 90, 15 times 6, and is a negative, unlike signs. 9 times 5, 45, negative, unlike signs when you're multiplying. 50 times 2 is 100, and you multiply negative by positive, so you're going to get a negative, unlike signs. So what we have here is a practice with a mixture. Yep, it's a mixture. So remember the rules. When you multiply like signs, you get a positive. When you multiply unlike signs, you get a negative. Work these out, get your answers, and play it back to see if you're right. Negative times a negative is a positive, 8, because they're like signs. Unlike signs, negative, 30. Unlike signs, negative, 36. Like signs, positive, 21. Like signs, positive, 28. Unlike signs, 21. Unlike signs, negative, 120. Unlike signs, negative, 120. Like signs, positive, 25 times 4 is 100. Unlike signs, negative, 5 times 20 is 100. We're going to put down a 50 then, 100. Unlike signs, negative, 82. Like signs, positive, 30. Circle the correct answer. The product of two integers with like signs is a positive or negative. Like signs is positive. The product of two integers with unlike signs is a negative. Like signs, positive. Unlike signs, negative when you're multiplying. What about the product of more than two integers? Find the product of each. No numbers here. So if you're multiplying negative times a negative times a negative, that's a negative. Notice when you multiply those two, you get a positive. So when you multiply positive times a negative, that's negative. What about if you multiply negative? So those two negatives will give you positive. Those two negatives will give you positive. And a positive times a positive will give you a positive. So you got four signs, positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So those two when you multiply is positive. Those two when you multiply is positive. So you got a negative. So it's an odd number, so you'll have a negative. So positive times a positive, like signs is positive, and positive times a negative is a negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you have 6, they pair up. Those two will give you a positive. Those two will give you a positive. And those two, when you multiply, will give you a positive. So the result of multiplying all those negatives is a positive number. So when did we get a negative number? When we had 3. When we had a negative here, we had 5. When we had a positive, we had 1, 2, 3, 4. When we had a positive here, we had 2, 4, 6. So the product of an even number. So this is an even number. Even numbers are factors of 2. So if it's even numbers, it's when the product of two even numbers is an even number of negatives is positive. So if we got an even number of negatives, you get a positive. The product of an odd number of negatives is a negative. So again, these are even, so when you multiply you get a positive. These are odd, when you multiply you get a negative. Let's practice. I got some more samples down below now, but notice this time we're multiplying. So let's check. I got a negative times a negative. I don't want to check positives because a positive will give you a positive anyway. So I got two negatives, so that's an even number, so that's going to be a positive answer. So that's 12 times 3 is 36. How many negatives? Only one. So that means it's odd. It's going to be negative. So 4 times 1 is 4 times 5 is 20. How many negatives? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 negatives. When you multiply is even, so you're going to get a positive. 5 times 2 is 10 times 3 is 30. How many negatives? 1, 2, 3. 3 negatives. When I multiply is odd, so I'm going to get a negative answer. 2 times 3 is 6 times 4 is 24. So when you're multiplying more than one integer, check the negatives. An odd number of negatives when you multiply is negative. An even number of negatives is positive. So let's practice. Pause the video, work these out. Here we go. 1, 2 negatives. So that's going to be a positive answer. 20 times 1 is 20 times 3 is 60. 1, 2, 3. 3 negatives is odd, so I'm going to get a negative answer. 4, 16, 32. 1 negative, so it's going to be a negative when I multiply because it's odd. That's a 10 times 2 is 20 times 2 is 40. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 negatives is even, so I'm going to get a positive answer. 7 times 10 is 70. Don't have to multiply by 1. Any number multiplied by 1 is that number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 negatives, that's odd. So I'm going to get a negative answer. So don't have to multiply by 1s. 2 times 3 is 6 times 2 is 12. Don't have to multiply by 1s because 2 times 1 is 2. Whatever. Anyway, that's a review of multiplication of integers. And the signs are, when you multiply 2 like signs, you get a positive. When you multiply 2 unlike signs, you get a negative. If you multiply more than one, odd number of negatives is a negative when you multiply. An even number of negatives is positive when you multiply. And if you like my video, you may click the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell, and write a comment on my videos if you wish. And visit my website at www.mathfullyexplained.com, and you'll have information on me, my teaching experience, my degrees, And also the section on video tells you what teaching strategies I'm going to use to help you learn your math. And also the section on content has the topics and the number of videos on each topic. And they'll be in black font. The black font will be, that's all, the topics already online on the YouTube channels. And the red font is the topics that will be developed in the near future. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.